Hello guys, and welcome back to Getting Started with LabVIEW. And in today's example, we will be looking into how to use a custom control in LabVIEW. Now, in most cases, we tend to create user interface based on the controls that is actually available whenever we click on the front panel, which you can see we have a meter, gauge, and in case if you want to use a graph, you can actually use all these controls here. However, depending on the requirement of your application, you might need to use different types of control which could be limited within the LabVIEW environment itself. In such case, what you can actually do is you can try to create a control within Visual Studio, which is using the .NET environment, and call it as a DLL in LabVIEW itself. Now, to demonstrate this, what I'm going to show you here is I have actually created the simple ball animation bouncing as a custom control. I call this as a user control 1, and what it does is whenever you run the simulation, it actually shows that the ball will be bouncing and hitting the boundaries of the wall, and it will just keep on going and going, and we can actually adjust the speed of the ball using the slider bar here. Now when I run this, what it does is it will actually show a preview of how the control would behave whenever you call them. So as you can see, it's actually behaving in this way. And on the right hand side here is actually all the properties, pretty much the property nodes that you will see once you actually call this control in LabVIEW itself. So you can actually access all these properties through property node later in LabVIEW. So I will actually show you how to do that. So let's close this. And of course, when we try to build the DLL, once we actually have the DLL, most of the time it will be within the Visual Studio project folder itself, so we need to call this DLL. And now once we have already established this, first what we need to do is, in the previous video we know that we actually can call it through the constructor node, but since we are going to call control, so we're going to use the .NET container. So this is the .NET container. Most of the time whenever you want to call in a control, you can actually use the .NET container. And so let's insert the .NET container that we have actually built. So as you can see, I actually have the location of the DLL, which is the control. So I'm going to call this. Let's select this, call this, and then now we can access the user control 1 class here. So once we call this, and let's try to adjust this and see. Now what happens here is that you can see it actually behaves like a preview. It's more like it behaves something like a GIF, but this is actually how the preview would actually looks like before you actually run the control. So let's try to adjust this, and I always like to show it in a while loop so that it's much more easier for us to actually see what is actually going on. So let's let the while loop, and what you can do is you can also access the property node like I mentioned just now. So once you actually access the property node, you see that you are able to access the properties that you actually seen in Visual Studio on the preview session. So I want to change this background color, and I want to change the background color of this user control. So what I'm going to do is I just need to create a control constant here, call a property node to get the color, and I just want to call this as probably dark orange, then dark orange, and I just need to write it, just write it here, and pretty much we are done. So if I were to run this example, so you can see here right now the entire control has been changed into dark orange, and you can see the ball is actually bouncing, hitting the wall, and I can actually slow down the speed of the ball by 90 milliseconds, and if I want to increase the speed slowly, you can see the ball starts to move really fast, and I hit to 1 millisecond, then you can see that the ball is actually bouncing in this way. So this is a simple example on how to actually use a custom .NET control and call it as a DLL in LabVIEW, and we can actually use these properties in LabVIEW. For those of you guys who are actually wondering how to actually implement a custom .NET control, or basically creating a user control, I will actually put in the link in the description below on how to create the custom user control in Visual Studio, and probably you can actually try and call it in your LabVIEW environment.